Okay, so this morning is going to be an overview of the Maamar. So let's just kind of flow over it. The Maamar begins with the pasuk, and it says, "Ha'tsh to Yud Beis Tmuz." Boruch, שעשה, Nisim la'aviseinu b'yomim mizman hazeh. Blessed be He who did miracles for our forefathers at this time. So he notes that Nisim is plural. Namely, there's Nisim that are invested in Teva, like Mordechai and Esther. And then there's Nisim hide in Teva, like Kriyas Yamsuf. And the difference is, in general, that Nisim that are hide in Teva are drawn from Shem Havaya, and Nisim in Teva, Shem Shakai or Shin Daled Yud. And what does Shin Daled Yud mean? He said, he quoted from the Gemara, it has two meanings. One is a limit. As the Gemara says, when Hashem created the world, each creation had to be stopped. Otherwise, it would just continue to produce that particular creation. So it means limit. The other meaning is sufficient, that Hashem has sufficient godliness for all of His creation. So the first explanation points to the limitations of creation. First explanation of this name Shin Daled Yud. The second one points to the likus that's in creation, that have sufficient likus, power, energy, godly energy for all of creation. So that points to the nes that's in Teva. The second h'tsh of the word Shem Shakai, Shin Daled Yud, is a reference to the miracle in nature. Now the whole kavanah, the theme of this Maamar and the previous one is Baruch Havai Lekei Yisrael Mino Olam Yad Olam, which means that a Yid has to draw a likus from one world to the other, meaning to say, from the hidden world to the revealed world, meaning to say, from Havaya to Shin Daled Yud, meaning to say, the miracles beyond nature and in nature. That should not be two separate worlds, but rather one, again, continuing the theme of Iruv Reshuyos, of mixing literally two separate domains, even though each one in their own right is godly. As he goes on to illustrate that chesed and gevura are both divine attributes, but that's not shleimus, because one does not tolerate or in harmony with the other. So the kavanah is not to have different, separate revelations of Alikus. It's one God and it's one kavanah. So it has to be all one. And that is achieved by the kavah emtzoi tiferes. Hence, Yaakov or Yisrael is invoked in the pasuk we just quoted. And he illustrated beautifully how the union of tiferes works, because chesed says, give, but then gevura opposes. So there is this conflict. Tiferes embraces both, validates both. It says all that what goes on in the person's mind, if in the end he's going to perform neither an act of chesed or an act of gevura, but rather an act of rachmim. So the poor man has stretched out his hand. So chesed says, give whatever he's asking. Gevura says, no, it may not be good for him. Does he deserve it? You're only encouraging, what's the expression? Enabling poverty. So Tiferes takes that all into account, and Tiferes gives, and may even give even more than Chesed had motivated. But it gives in such a way that takes into account Gevura, gives in such a way that it would foster the person's self-esteem, bolster his self-esteem, empower him to be able to be self-sufficient. So it's a hashpah that's both chesed and gevura, and it goes far further. It's far more far-reaching. The end product is an enduring one, unlike Avraham and Yitzchak, Esav and Yishmael, or Yishmael and Esav, as opposed to Yaakov. Then there was the whole beautiful arichas in this ois, how this is all hinted to in the word Erev, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the Erev of the Reshuyos. So you recall that the word Erev is made up, of course, of Al Ayin Beis, and then Reish Yud Vav. So Ayin Beis is a Gematria Chesed. So that's the Chesed property in the Erev. And Reish Yud Vav is Gematria Gevurah, and it's all one word. That was the general statement. In the brackets, he added a nuance. As we trace Chesed's source back, so Chesed's source is Chochmah, of course. Both are illuminatory, both are giving. Chochmah, right, obviously, and Chesed, obviously. So therefore, that's why Chochmah is Begematria what? 73. Because that's Chesed, Ayin Beis, with that one digit, one unit representing the word, the whole word, Ima Koilel, with the whole word as in the rules of Gematria. All to say that the word Erev is a fusion of Gevurah and Chesed / Chochmah, which is exactly what we speak of, the inyan of the Erev, the Erev Reshuyos, the fusing of together of dissimilar Giluyim, although both are a likus, but making them one, like the likus in Teva, the likus revealed through a miracle, both as a likus. But the kavanah is it all becomes seamlessly one expression of a likus. That again is through the avodah dafka of Yaakov, of Das or Tiferes, which is the central kav. As we've explained always, the central kav is really connected to the very essence, that is the equal source transcends and therefore unites the opposites of Chesed and Gevurah.
Is Yesod also associated in that category?
Yeah, except Yesod we learned needs to have a special avodah of the milah, because it could go in the wrong place, but yeah, it's all part of it. That was Ois Aleph. Now Ois Beis. And this is also what the pasuk says, which I say every day. Magi dvarav liYaakov, chukav mishpatav liYisrael. He relates his words to Yaakov, his chukim, his mishpatim to Yisrael, also reference to Yaakov, as the Maimon later explains, from the level of Eved to the level of, which is Yaakov Avdi, then later to the manifested level of Yisrael, which is engaging Seichel and Midas, as he will explain later, from the Reish Surim to the voice Ashurenu. And now the point that he's saying now is, as explained in the Siddur, that when you have the avodah of Yaakov, then Magi Dvorov. So all of the brachas that the capital had enumerated before this pasuk are all drawn down into the Gashmis of Elam as Hazeh. So why is it Dafka Yaakov? Because Yaakov is the B'rich HaTichon, the central shaft of the Mishkan that unites the Chesed and Gevurah, the right side of the Mishkan and the left side of the Mishkan. The Hamshach of Alma Disgasya into Alma Disgalya. Now, the Alter Rebbe goes on to say the point that you were saying, because it's all based on the commentary of the mind of the Alter Rebbe in the Siddur on this word. It should bring over here on the phone. Should bring here. Didn't ring here. Can't get in. It's trying to go to the mikveh. They haven't got a license to get in. That's what it means. Probably. So I'm not going to fight with fellows. So the point you just mentioned now. So when you're mamshich from the middle kav, Yaakov, Israel, then there is no place for what? The chitzonim at all. Chesed, yes, Chesed produces Esav. Gevurah produces, Chesed produces the indulgent Yishmael, and Gevurah the angry Esav. Not so Yaakov. Nonetheless, the end of the Amshacha, which is Yesod, it's also the central shaft. And Yesod, of course, and the physical body, that's the place of the Milah. That's the place of the ultimate connection, the place where birth happens or takes place. So there you need to have, in order that the chitzonim should not be nourished, you have to remove a klippa.
You say that's why Yaakov had such emphasis on son Yosef.
Yeah, indeed. That's the special connection between Yaakov and Yosef. Yosef was Yesod. That's why he's tested there and so on. So that's why you have to have the removal of that. So the shaila is why. And the Maimon is going to explain that over the course of the Maimon. Why you have to have the removal of the klippa of the oral of Yesod. And there's a need to remove the chitzonim there. Now we see this also in the following. The pasuk says, "V'Yaakov ishtam Yosef v'holim." So what's Yosef v'holim? Yosef v'holim is the plural. So that's the chibur of, that's Irav Reshuyos, the two tents literally, the two domains. It's the achtas of bin and malchus, alma discussion, alma disgalia. So what's a prerequisite to that? The prerequisite to be able to do the Yosef v'holim is the end of Mila again, ishtam. Ishtam means that Noilid Mohel was born Mohel. Because the Inyan of Mila removes the Orla, that effect, there shouldn't be indika to the Chitzonim. Yaakov didn't have to work on that, he was born that way, but for everybody else, has to be this Avodah. So what we're seeing now is that there's this need of Mila on the two extremes. There's the need of the Avodah of Mila in order to be Mamshech this Giloi, before we even speak about drawing it down into the world, into Yesod, just to touch that level, to elicit this Gilui of Tiferes, this Atzmis Dika level, there has to be the avodah of removing an Orla. And the other extreme is also the Milah at the level of Yesod, to make sure that the Amshacha goes where it should and not elsewhere. So we're a little bit puzzled why you need altogether removing an Orla. Did we not say that the whole point of the Kaveh Mitzvah is there's no Yinika to Chitzonim, as opposed to Chesed and Gevurah? And now we're saying that there is Yinika in Chitzonim. Well, there is at least the required avodah of Milah, both to be mamshich this level at the height of it and its ultimate final hashpah. And a good deal of the Maimer is devoted to explaining that. Continue. So that's the question now. That's the question that at the second paragraph, second paragraph of Ois Beis. He goes on to explain that we see looking at the middle of Avram. The fact is that Hashem spoke to him even before he had a milah, and there are other tzaddikim that had a milah. So what's this pointing to? This is pointing to answer why you need the milah to connect to this gili to begin with, and that is why, because till now milah was tolerable because it was a lower gili, as we will explain. Now that he's having this gilui or elyon naila b'yosa, this very lofty gilui, so here you have to have the removal of this orla. So the orla of Avraham was not a concealment to the gilui until now, but now it is. And likewise, ishtam Yosef v'holim, that because of the great gilui of Yosef v'holim, which is the irub of Reshuyos, the fusion of alma disgasia and alma disgalia. So it has to be ishtam, same idea. Yaakov has to remove, it's removed, it was born this way, the inyan of Orla. So what's the inyan? So before we go into the pratim, just a general idea, l'choda is that with the inyan of of Milah, and particularly manifested in the Avodah, that's Avraham, the first one to be Mal, which was the Hachana. And then the Shleimus of the Avodah of Avraham is achieved through Yaakov. There's a new Avodah here now. The new Avodah is the Erev Rishuyos. So that which was a barrier in the past is okay. This chesed, this gvur, as long as it's all holy, as long as it's ultimately, expressing allegiance and points to one God, must speak. The avodah is good enough. That was till Avram's milah, until Yaakov. I'm adding, between the dots of the Maimon to explain it. That's till Yaakov, and Yaakov comes along and completes the avodah of Avram, which is all the hachana from Matan Torah. Actually, as we said, as we looked the Maimon, that the milah of Avram was a mini Matan Torah. That was his Matan Torah. And Yaakov, his whole inyan is Torah. Yoshev Yeholim. He's the final preparation for the Shvatim and the whole process that culminates in Matan Torah. And what's the inyan of Matan Torah? In other words, the ultimate kavanah is not that there should be different revelations of Elikus, but rather true oneness. The dissolvement of the barriers, even in Kedusha, between Chesed and Gevurah. So this is overall explaining why, before Avram gets, or in connection, it's all one thing, in connection with the milah that Avram does, that means removing a barrier. That's exactly what's happening now. It's removing a barrier. What barrier? In summary, a barrier of Kedusha. Then we'll deal with the end of the line in Yesod. We're not dealing with the Kedusha there. They were dealing with Klippa. There's a need for removal of a barrier there too, as a Maimon will explain. We have the general outline is clear, I hope, where we're going, yeah? So to explain this fascinating biur, fascinating explanation in the whole union of Shabbos, and then I will see how Milah is higher than Shabbos. Shabbos the 7th day, Milah is the 8th day. And this is all based on the conversation between a heretic and Rabbi Akiva. What's the conversation? So the heretic, the min asks Rabbi Akiva, so you say that Hashem observes the Shabbos, observes the mitzvahs. If so the wind shouldn't blow on Shabbos, rain shouldn't fall, grass shouldn't grow. How are all these malachas happening, performed by God on Shabbos? Rabbi Akiva's answer was that when you have two people living in separate domains, you need an Erev. If there's one person living in one domain, then he can carry without a problem from his house to the courtyard. So in the Nimshal, the house is heaven, the courtyard is the world. And the rain is coming from the heaven to the earth. That's okay, because it's all God's domain. That's the basic answer of Rabbi Akiva to the min. But it would appear entirely not understood. Because surely the question, as we can see, of the min was not just carrying rain from heaven, the godly domain, as it were, coming to the world. Actually, even halacha, if you go higher than 10 tvachim, it's yochid, right? So you're going from one rishus to another rishus. So his question was not merely on how God allows or rain or causes the rain, but on all of the malachas. As he mentions, the growing of vegetation. So how is this answered by the of the Erev, or the no need for the Erev, because it's all God's domain? It's a very strong question. How's Rabbi Akiva answering the min? So the answer is, what's the whole in of h't's malachas? The h't's malachas is all about elevating the sparks that fall from Tohu. So Shabbos, we don't do malacha. Shabbos, boider, to recite one malacha. Boider, extracting the bad from the good. We don't do on Shabbos. Why? Because Shabbos were elevated to a place where everything is rarefied and pure, and there's no need for the avodah of refinement. So this is what Rabbi Akiva told. This is what Rabbi Akiva told the men, that on Shabbos we all enter, and for the Eibishter, the whole world is brought into his singular domain. And his singular domain, therefore, malacha is permissible because it's not the malacha of the weekday. The malacha of the weekday is the agenda of fixing and extracting. There's no fixing and extracting. It's merely expressions of a likus, but not with the agenda. It's all happening internally, but not with the usual function of malacha, which is to fix a world that needs to be fixed, a world regarding Nisim, a world where the Shviras HaKelim, the sparks of a likus, fell into Gashmis. So I'm not going to repeat this again, but we went into this whole beer when we learned the Maamar earlier. So why is he doing the malachas all together? What's the point of them? So we explained there's two levels to the mitzvah. There's the mitzvah as it has an agenda, and there's the mitzvah that has no agenda, just expression of elikus. So that's why on Shabbos, so in conclusion, so on Shabbos, we are elevated to a place that's higher than the whole avodah of tikkun. We enter into a perfect space. So no malacha, and that's the essence of what Rabbi Akiva is answering them in. It's one domain, not dealing with two domains. If we're dealing with one domain, the whole thing in a malacha is moot as the prohibition of malacha, which is all about fixing. It's a different kind. It's not a malacha fixing here. Simply an expression of a likus. Again, mitzvahs at their core aren't about accomplishing anything, just expressing God. Which is why in the end, the commandment mitzvah, the commandment component of mitzvahs will no longer be. Doesn't mean they won't be mitzvahs. It means you won't be told to do them. There won't be a mission to fix. It's fixed. So what are mitzvahs now? Just being, just the pure expression of elikus. And that's similar to what the Eibishter is doing on Shabbos. But then is the end of Eidov. So what's happening on Shabbos? So on Shabbos, we are leaving the world behind. We're not going into the chotzer. And we are in exclusively the Rishus HaYachid, not interacting with the chotzer. Then comes this extraordinary mitzvah called Eidov and says, no, we can even bring this into the chotzer. And we can make the chotzer also part of the Rishus HaYachid. So that's even a higher level than the level of Shabbos. That's the level of Milah, Shmini, the 8th day, which is Mevatel the Rishuyas. Shabbos says, don't go there. Don't interact there. And the Eidov says you can, because the Eidov, so this is the meaning of Milah. Milah dissolves the Orla. This is the Orla here, the subtle kind of Orla. The Orla is the one that exists on Shabbos itself. The Orla, the division between one Rishus and the other. The laws of Shabbos, Min HaTorah says, or at least the Issam, actually it's Issam the Rabbana, which is Min HaTorah, because the Torah commands us to listen to the Chachamim. So the bottom line is the Issur says you cannot carry from your Rishus to the Chotzer. And that's fine. That you're observing Shabbos beautifully. That's like Avram pre-Milah. There's an Orla and it's all holy. Hashem is communicating. But Hashem is communicating, revealing himself only in a very limited, but in a limited context. This side of the river. Avram was called an Ivri, same idea. It means the other side. He was on one side, the whole world was on the other side. Which is wonderful. He's a holy man. There's a whole world out there that hasn't been elevated. That's not the kavanah. And the root of that starts by bringing peace. It's chesed and gevurah. It's Michal and Gabriel. But they're opposing. That's not true oneness. They're both beautiful and holy, but not one. So this is the inyan of Shabbos. Shabbos says, we'll leave the world behind. We'll deal with it after Shabbos. Right now, we're entering into a higher space, a space of Kedusha, and don't cross the line. Comes along the Erev, and the Erev already begins the process that culminates, of course, the Mashiach comes, that embraces the Chotzer, the courtyard, and makes it one with the Rishus HaYochid.
How come, just side note,
Yeah.
Chabad isn't into...
That's, no. Yeah, somebody asked that on the chat.
Yeah.
And Chabad it's only in the city. To make an Eruv Chatzedos, we do camp, bungalow colonies. Yeah, it's only to carry from Yochid Mamish to Rabbi, and for another consideration. Theory, it's a beautiful idea, but first of all, to make a proper Eruv, according to the Alter Rebbe Shitta, is very stringent, and it's not what they rely on. They rely on much less chumradike enclosures. That's number one. Number two, the primary problem is that people will forget that this whole need of carrying. And if they'll go to another city, they'll just carry. And they'll become forgotten. So it's for external considerations. In principle, yes, which is why it is used in a closed area, a camp, a bungalow colony, houses sharing a courtyard. You do the item. Of course, it's mitzvah. It's a mitzvah. So this is the Inyan of Milda. That's why Milda pushes away Shabbos. If Milda happens on Shabbos, we do the Milda. Because what's it saying? It's saying, Shabbos, there's an orla for you. There is a division. Shabbos, per se, says, now we're in Rishus HaYochid, and we're not going to the Chotzer, we're not going to the open courtyard, we're not going to the world. Shabbos is transcendence. So Mila says, we're doing a malacha. All the things you can't do on Shabbos, you do for the Mila. Heat the water and cutting and bandaging and everything. Carrying. Not just the child, but the instruments. Why? Because Mila is the Inyan of Shmini. And Shmini is Inyan again, that's already touching even higher than Toyo. This is Tiferes, the Pnimius. And at the Pnimius level, the Pnimius Kavanah is that there shouldn't be separate domains, but all fuse and become one, and hence this melacha is done. And this barrier, and what's the melacha? To remove the barrier, the barrier that exists in Kedusha itself. And that's what explains the deal of Ad Sheyaver Olav, that why do the Chazal say, why is Mila the 8th day? In order to ensure that the child has endured, has experienced a Shabbos. And the Lashon of Chazal is, Ad sheyaver olav Shabbos achas, until one Shabbos passes over him, and he teaches over him means that the meal, so he's over the Shabbos really. Ad sheyaver olav Shabbos achas, kind of teaching, till it passes over it, the olive is on the Shabbos. Over the Shabbos, he passes over the Shabbos, not literal, but he passes over the Shabbos, and now is ready to experience the Inyan of Milah. First, the Madrega of Shabbos, which is a Kedusha, but somewhat contextual, and then the absolute Kedusha, which is Milah, of which there is no barriers, and Malach is permissible and necessary. So, therefore, we understand why, again, there's the need of the removal of the orla at this very lofty level, because the orla we speak of here is what? Is an orla in Kedusha. One rishus, another rishus, chesed, gevura, and so on, that needs to be removed and is removed in the face of this ultimate gilui, bringing this unity even higher than the unity or the experience of Shabbos. Now, but however, the sources, the Siddur said that the function of the Orla is to make sure that when the Amshacha comes all the way down, Klippa shouldn't get a Chayis. Why is there a need for a move of Arla over there? So he says, Dafka, because it's such a high Giloi, since it's such a high revelation, of the face of which there are no divisions, no barriers. So therefore, there could be a Nikin Chitzonim. Like the spider again, that is tolerated in the king's palace, not even noticed. And they're spinning its web and gorging itself. So there's the need to have at the end of the Hamshacha, this, for the same reason, the meal is required also for the end, the final Hamshacha, to see to it as when the Hamshacha is Nimshach, it should be Nimshach, but in the right place, in the Pnimius, and not be siphoned in the place of Klippa. Again, I'm suggesting that this means at least one manifestation of this. I mean, it's generally, it's avodah. And avodah in general, it means that, the whole kavanah is to go in Leilam Hazeh and to bring a likus over there. And the person's all fired up and inspired by the mission. But the fact is, when you engage in Leilam Hazeh, there's a whole new set of distractions that needs that the person has to be very focused and make sure that his engagement there and the koichas that he's investing go in the right place and in the right way. And again, it's dafka because he's drawing. Why is he there on a very lofty level? It's very powerful. It's a very powerful avodah. It's a powerful shlichus, and invested in his gewaltige oir, the face of which light and darkness is equal. So you got to be careful that it should go in the pnimius way, as he'll elaborate further in the Maimer, by drawing on the pnimius kavanah. That even though light and dark are equal, the Eibusher says he wants light, not darkness. Yaakov and Esav are twin brothers, but it's dafka what? It's Yaakov ahavti, it's Esav son Esi. Okay, we'll continue that Be'ez Hashem tomorrow.